Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're digging into a really interesting source. It's a book, Big Ideas for Little Kids by Thomas Wartenberg.
Right.
And it looks at, well, something I found pretty surprising, actually, teaching philosophy, like real philosophy, to elementary school kids.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to unpack what that whole approach tells us, not just about philosophy itself, but, what it reveals about young minds.
Okay.
And how tapping into that sort of natural curiosity they have can be, well, pretty powerful. A shortcut to seeing how philosophical kids already are, maybe.
Yeah, I was hooked straight away by that core idea.
Mm-hmm.
The book basically argues children aren't just able to think philosophically.
Mm-hmm.
They're, and this is a quote, natural-born philosophers. That sounds big.
It does, yeah. It sounds like a big claim. But the source has some really compelling stuff to back it up.
Like what?
Well, there's this example right near the start that really stayed with me. It's the author's son, Jake. He was 5 at the time, and he asks this just fundamental philosophical question. How did the first human get here?
Wow.
And it wasn't just a simple where do babies come from thing. He was like genuinely wrestling with infinite regress. Parents have parents who have parents forever.
Right, that idea.
Versus the alternative that humans somehow just popped into existence. I mean, that's a classic philosophical puzzle, right? From a 5-year-old.
Wait, a 5-year-old puzzling over infinite regress? That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so if kids are kind of doing this naturally anyway, why formally teach it? Doesn't philosophy sound, I don't know, really heavy for little kids?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's not about making it heavy. It's more about guiding what's already happening. The approach isn't about, downloading Kant into second graders. It's really about cultivating those skills they naturally use: critical thinking, independence, creativity.
Inquisitiveness.
Exactly. Inquisitiveness. And even, a bit of healthy skepticism about what authorities tell them. These are skills you need to be an engaged citizen later. So it's a shift, really, moving them from just getting information to actively exploring ideas for themselves.
That puts a different spin on it. But how practically do you do that? Are they reading Plato in 3rd grade?
No, not at all. That's the really clever part, I think.
Yeah.
It gets woven right into their regular language arts time. They use kids' books, ones you'd probably recognize, like Frog and Toad or The Giving Tree, as springboards. The story gives them a situation, maybe a dilemma, and that kicks off a philosophical chat in the classroom.
So it's not like an extra subject squeezed in.
Nope. Integrated. And it changes the whole feel of the classroom. It becomes what the book calls learner-centered. The kids are the ones talking, debating, exploring ideas together.
Instead of the teacher just lecturing.
Right, exactly. It moves away from that teacher-centered, knowledge dump model.
So if the teacher isn't the philosophy expert doling out answers,
right,
what do they do?
Good question. The book paints the teacher as more of a facilitator, or an umpire was the term.
He's an umpire, huh?
Yeah, they're not there to say this is the right philosophy. Their job is guiding the conversation, making sure everyone follows some simple rules for, philosophical discussion.
Like what kind of rules?
Things like stating your position clearly, listening to others, agreeing or disagreeing, but giving reasons, thinking about counterexamples. Basically managing the inquiry process.
An umpire for ideas. I like that. And didn't the source have a story about a kid having a real philosophical insight?
Oh, absolutely. A fantastic example. There was this 5th grader, right? They were discussing why stealing is wrong.
Okay.
And this student comes out with an argument that's incredibly similar to Socrates' point in Plato's Euthyphro.
No way.
Seriously. Essentially saying stealing isn't wrong just because grown-ups say so. It's wrong because it is wrong, inherently.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep reasoning for a 5th grader.
That's amazing. A 5th grader basically echoing Socrates without even knowing it.
Shows what they're capable of when you give them this space, right?
Definitely. And using different books lets them touch on all sorts of big ideas.
Yeah. That's a key strength. Different stories naturally lead to different kinds of questions. So they end up exploring things from, ethics, right and wrong. Metaphysics, like what's real, epistemology, how we know things. Even aesthetics, what's beauty, what's art, the whole range.
So wrapping up, this whole approach It really seems to validate childhood, doesn't it, as this distinct phase that's already full of these deep philosophical questions.
Absolutely. It empowers kids as thinkers in their own right.
Not just empty vessels waiting for facts.
Exactly. It takes that constant why
Yeah.
seriously and gives them tools to explore it.
Okay, so maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If we actually nurtured this natural philosophical spark in kids right from the start, how might that change things? Not just, their time in the classroom, but their whole way of learning and figuring out the world as they grow up. Something to think about.